genre.
Hello and welcome back to the Doctor's Companion Presents Doctor Who The Long Way Around, the weekly podcast where we review and discuss every episode of Doctor Who, one doctor at a time. I'm Scott Corelli.
I'm Cass Fredrickson.
And I'm Nick Jimenez.
Today on the show, we'll be discussing The Empty Child and the Doctor Dances, the Ninth Doctor's 8th story, and what a story it is. So this is, of course, the first story written by Stephen Moffat. Under official Doctor Who canon. Of course, previous to this, he had contributed to he had made like a short story contribution, which would later be adapted in the third season of the New Who stuff. A little story called Blink. Although I think it's called How I Spent My Summer Vacation by Sally Sparrow, I think is what the short story is called. Something like that.
By Stephen Moffat.
Yes, by Stephen Moffat. Yeah. And then of course The Curse of Fatal Death starring Rowan Atkinson, which we previously covered as the 1999 comedy relief spoof, which we previously covered on April Fool's Day 3 years ago, something like that.
It was a couple of years ago, yeah.
Yeah. So this is his first legit thing, and honestly, this was something that he had to chase because he wasn't considered a shoo-in for it, because at this point he had never written drama ever. So he'd only worked on 3 sitcoms prior to this. So he had worked on Coupling, of course, Joking Apart, and Press Gang. Press Gang is sort of like I think it's like a high school newspaper show or a college newspaper, university.
That's
maybe.
a very clever title.
Yeah, Press Gang. And then Joking Apart, I think, is something about like stand-up comedy.
Is Coupling the first one that he created?
No, he created all 3 of those.
Oh, okay, cool.
I'm pretty sure. It's just that like they don't get as much press because he was still probably finding himself as a writer. Sure. I would imagine. But yeah, because like in I guess in England it's just like you could just be like an author of shows. Mm-hmm. You're not really like a showrunner. You're not working on the day-to-day. You just hand in 6 scripts and you're like, here's a show.
Right. Here's Gavin and Stacey.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So yeah, but I think you might be right. I think Coupling might be the first one that he like show ran with his wife. I think was what the first one being Coupling.
Because that's like early 2000s. Yeah.
Yeah. Late 90s, early 2000s,
sure. Somewhere
in that range. It's hard to tell that era apart. Mm-hmm. Like 98 to like 2002. Sure. It's hard to like differentiate. Yeah. So this was when the announcement went out that they were bringing Doctor Who back and Russell T Davies was running the show, Moffat picked up his newspaper, saw that it was happening, and then was like, and then literally dialed the phone and called up Russell T Davies and was like, so you're looking for writers, right? Because I want to write this show. And really like kind of pestered him until he got the gig. He ended up getting, because this season was broken in a way where each episode was pre-broken with a concept that Russell T Davies came up with. So he went out to writers and was like, hey, I've got a Dalek episode. I've got a 2-parter here that I'm calling World War II and Captain Jack's. Those were going to be the original titles for the episodes, and it has something to do with like an escaped child who's like a creature, and that's the story's antagonist. And so he pitched all of the episode concepts to Stephen Moffat. This is the one Stephen Moffat picked. And he was like, okay, but that's going to be a 2-parter. And he was like, no problem. So he ended up with this one. A couple of fun things that I really like. So, the ship and the ambulance in this episode are, called Chula technology. Mm-hmm. Chula was the name of the Indian restaurant where Moffat, Paul Cornell, Mark Gatiss, and Robert Shearman all went to in February of 2004 to celebrate their brand new Doctor Who contracts as writers for the new show. Oh. So they all went and got a meal and got some drinks at this restaurant, and he named the alien technology in this episode on that restaurant.
The Lads.
Yep, the Lads. Pretty cool. That's a crazy. Stephen Moffat, Paul Cornell, Mark Gatiss, and Robert Shearman all went to a restaurant together. That's nuts. So then he took, originally Captain Jack Harkness was a character that would be pretending to be human, but was actually an alien named Jax, Jax. And that was why the second episode was going to be called Captain Jax. Stephen Moffat was like, I think it's better if he's just from the future, but he's a con man. He's like the Doctor if the Doctor was a con man.
More of a scoundrel.
Yeah, more of a scoundrel.
Well, it says so much just in the fact that, like, Doctor has a sonic screwdriver, this guy has a sonic gun.
Right, exactly. So he changed that, and then he changed the thing from the child creature to being a child. And the originally the mother character was the thing that she was. So originally she wasn't going to be so young. She was going to be a little older than she is in this. And the thing that, and like throughout the story, the father, who would be revealed to be the father of this child, it also shows up to help her with the kids, right? Because she still does like the stuff with like the kids and everything, but she's like older. She's like in her 20s,
like 25.
Right, 25, yeah, whatever. Which is basically like 35 in like 1940 times. I mean, you know.
Well, no, because she's only 21 in this.
Okay,
and,
yeah.
So it's like even like a little older would be like 25.
Yeah. So she was definitely going to be a little bit older, because what you were going to find out about the father is that the reason that she had so much shame about Jamie, the child, was because the father was a German soldier, a Nazi. And so that's why the kid is blonde, actually. Yeah, that was going to be the thing that she felt shame about, not having a child too young, not being like a child herself, having a child and being overwhelmed. It was going to be more the shame of like, oh my God, I boned down with a Nazi soldier and had a child.
I like that, because actually the moment that you're describing right now, the guilt, it's actually kind of like the weakest part of the second episode for me. Mm-hmm. In an episode that seems so elegant, it was the one part that was like, this feels kind of gross, and I can't really, this feels icky. Yeah, and what you're describing feels it feels cleaner and less like the Doctor almost gets a kind of finger waggy. Yeah, at the end to me,
just like, yeah, why don't you keep your knees closed, young lady? Like, it has that kind of vibe in a way that I'm not into.
I disagree.
Oh, really?
Cool. Yeah.
Okay,
we'll get to it.
Yeah, we'll get to it. So anyway, so all of that happens, all of that changes. They go and they shoot this story. They shoot part of it in December of 2004 and the rest of it in January of 2005. And, overall, so they hire, Mr. Jack Harkness himself, John Barrowman, who had done, he had been, of course, born in Scotland, raised in Illinois, and so that just explains everything you need to know about him.
Yeah.
And he was nominated for a Laurence Olivier Theatre Award for Best Actor in the musical The Fix. On television, he had starred in two short-lived nighttime soap operas in the United States called Central Park West and Titans. I vaguely remember both of these. Very vaguely. I think they're both like canceled after 13 episodes, but I think I remember them, being like after a show I watched or something like that. The names sound vaguely familiar. Titans, not that Titans.
Right.
So although he would later be in the DC universe.
I was gonna say, like, Merlin could have shown up in Titans.
Yeah, he could have. He certainly could have. And might I say, he should have. So anyway, okay, so they shoot this whole story. As they get into the Doctor Dances, the second part of the story, now renamed The Empty Child and the Doctor Dances. They find that the episode is running short. The second part is running short. They're looking at dailies. They're like rough estimates in their head about like how long this is going to be. And they're like, oh, this episode is only like 35 minutes long.
Oh God.
Wow.
That's a lot.
Right. Yeah. It's like, 35, 38 minutes, something like that. And so they're like, okay, we need to shoot something else, but we can't shoot anything with the Doctor and Rose because all of that stuff is accounted for. And they're like, oh, we should add more scenes with the girl so that the end plays better, is stronger. So having to do it the day before, I think it was shot with a second unit that did all of the stuff with all of her scenes in this episode. To split up the work, Russell T Davies wrote one scene and Stephen Moffat wrote the other one. And so Moffat wrote the scene where she's with all the kids in like the bunker and the typewriter. That scene was added like the day before they shot it. And then the same thing, Russell T Davies wrote the scene where she, I guess like...
It's like handcuffed to the table?
Gets it. No, I guess that part was in there too. I don't know who wrote that one. They didn't mention it.
With the dad, where she gets caught.
With the dad and the butcher. Yeah.
Oh, which
I totally called while we were watching it. I was like, this feels like a Russell T Davies scene. And then in doing my research, I was like, that's because it was.
Yeah, the dad or the husband having an affair with the butcher,
right?
When you thought they were leading you that it was the wife, you're like, that's very RTD.
Yeah, and the whole like sweat on my brow conversation, like all of that stuff felt very Russell T Davies and not remotely Stephen Moffat. I was like, none of this sounds like Stephen Moffat. What is this? This is weird. This feels weird in this episode. and
likewise, Moffat's scene is vintage Moff, which we'll get into.
Right, and in fact, just kind of like. Almost like a repeated motif from an earlier scene with the radio of like, or the record. It was a record, right?
Yeah, we can talk about it. Yeah, it was.
So that's it. That's the background of significance. I mean, this was I feel like, up to this point, I remember watching this show for the first time and enjoying it. And I really liked End of the World. I really liked Dalek. And I was relatively enjoying it. Like it was good. And then this episode happened and I was like, oh, this show is capable of being like next level good. Oh my God. This episode blew me away the first time I watched it. And this was the first thing I ever saw. It was written by Stephen Moffat. And, I really, really adored this episode the first time I watched this. It like really stuck out to me. And then it was like, I think Stephen Moffat might have been, other than Russell T, might have been the first like Doctor Who writer that I like paid attention to. I would say, because like the Paul Cornell thing that happened in like retrospect, like Father's Day was great, but it didn't occur to me until I think he came back in the third season. I was like, oh, it's the guy who did Father's Day, that kind of thing. But this was the first one that I was like, I need to pay attention to this writer. This is really good. Do you guys remember seeing this for the first time? Cass, do you remember?
I don't, because when I was watching it, it was kind of like we were binge watching it because I think the fourth season had just ended. It was in that that Twilight period where David Tennant was going to leave, but so I had started watching the show before they announced that Matt Smith was going to take over. Because I remember reacting to that and being like, well, he's not David Tennant, because I, was a new Doctor Who fan.
Sure, of course.
But Yeah, I remember really enjoying this one, but it didn't really have like the impact that like Dalek did, because Dalek was the first one where I was just like, oh, I like this show. But yeah, this is a good one.
Yeah.
I also don't remember watching this for the first time, or like when I sat down and watched this one. But watching it now, it feels, even before that story, it is to me such a beautiful collaboration between the styles of Moffat and Russell T Davies.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And as a Moffat episode, I appreciated it a lot because it feels like he's so restrained, but, or like there's so it feels like it belongs in the Russell T Davies era, but there's all these really cool little, like Scott said, motifs, visual and like character, and and seeing it like seeds being planted in this early episode is really fun. Like I don't know, just like little moments like the typewriter.
Mm-hmm.
They're like, wait, no, who's typing? Oh, it's a ghost. Like,
Mm-hmm.
he loves that.
It's very confident in a way that is also fun. Like, you know, I think he gets overconfident as he goes along,
Yes.
and then learns from that eventually. He has like a whole, he
Arc
comes
about
full circle as a writer, I think, for this show. But it is very confident in a way of just like, you can tell he is having the time of his life writing this story.
You're
you know?
right. Like even little moments like the joke about how, oh yeah, I got this sonic thing from a farm. From a factory? Have you been there once? Yeah, it blew up. Like I said, I've been there once. Like that's such a, yeah, I've been thinking about Doctor Who since I was 8.
Yeah.
Like move.
Yeah. And those motifs like we were talking about, where he just makes fun of the Doctor, just rips on him like all the time. I'm just like, this is so stupid. All of this is stupid, and I love it so much. And
Well,
none of you will take it away from me.
It's funny because like rewatching, I haven't seen this in a really long time, so rewatching it now, that we're like in another era removed from Moffat, it felt like the most like Matt Smith could just drop into this episode and it would play entirely the same.
Yeah.
At least the first part. Like the second part where it's more about like the weird like will they won't they with the Doctor and Rose, like I was like, that's less like Matt Smith and Amy. But like the first part of this, I was just like, oh yeah, Matt Smith could be the Doctor, and it feels exactly the same.
What's so great about the first one is the Doctor is on like classic like Doctor poking around exploring a new world, and Rose gets to go on like a hot date.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Let's normalize that in the show going forward.
Yeah.
The companion just gets to be like in a chapter of a fanfic.
I wonder if Jack hadn't been written by Stephen Moffat first, if Jack would be the way that Jack is, because Jack is very much like every like female character that Stephen Moffat has ever written. Like he's very River Song.
Yeah.
Horny as a personality trait.
Like super horny, you know, like really like confident and just being like I know you're looking, you know, like that vibe. That's every female character that Moffat.
See that guard, Doctor? I know him because we hooked up. Be right back.
Yeah. Like, I wonder, I don't know that Russell T has ever written a character quite that, like, with that much bravado.
Jackie, I guess, comes closest.
You know, but I think it's, yeah,
you're right. Like, Jack is very much kind of like the male River. I've never thought about it before.
Right.
But very, like, sexy and confident, and, like, I'm here, party started. And like and it kind of is sort of a response to the Doctor, because like they both have a long, cool, playful history that they can reach in and like,
yeah.
Just
like the vibe of like, all right, I have entered this room. I have a list of things to do, but if anyone in this room wants to hook up, I can pause and finish on the other side.
Yeah.
Just putting that out there. That's,
make no mistake.
That's River. That's Jack. That's
Graham.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. No, we're talking about that. Oh no. We were talking about how the Rose and Jack in this episode, like this is what uninterrupted would happen every time.
Yeah. Including the time with Jack and Graham. Yeah. If Jack wasn't interrupted,
Yeah.
this is what would have
Like
happened.
Glenn Miller, Graham.
He would have opened up a bottle of champagne.
Oh, my word.
Brought him out on top of his invisible ship.
Bless.
Oh, I mean, Big Ben.
They would have slow danced.
You know how to show a bloke a good time, Captain Jack.
Yeah. Oh, do you want to mention the other thing that you noticed about the Ninth Doctor too?
Oh, yeah. So, we were... So, like, we noticed a lot of similarities between 9 and 13, where they're both outwardly very animated and enthusiastic and wholesome, but hiding a lot of anger and confusion and identity stuff, and also both loners. And kind of like a new kind of regeneration. And I don't think I ever clocked that before.
That makes sense.
It is very... Yeah, I think you're right. I think they do have very similar vibes. I can't think of a classic Doctor equivalent. The closest I can think of is like 5-ish, I guess, maybe. But like even that's like a stretch.
And then Scott made a really cool thing that I had never thought about before, which is the idea of, in a world where Eccleston had stayed on for longer, the idea of instead of one companion, like what if Rose plus others? And he became like the Doctor to like a small family, like a cranky dad to like a group of companions.
Yeah, I was like, imagine a second season of Eccleston with Jackie and Mickey also being companions the whole season.
They also like, they pop in and out, Jackie and Mickey do. So
right.
That's so adorable.
Yeah. But I'm like more interested in that with them as full-time companions in the context of 9, much more so than I am with 10.
Yeah.
With 10, I just can't wait for the Rose era to be over. But with 9, another season of this. I will say I am interested in your thoughts on the will they, won't they thing, because I don't get those vibes at all from this episode.
Really?
So I'm, not at all. So I'm interested in that.
I think it's mostly, all the conversations about dancing. It's very like Captain America First Avenger, like, oh, do you fondue kind of thing. And they even use, like, he even uses that analogy when he's talking about, human beings going off into the outer space and like boning down with all the aliens. But yeah, I don't know. And then the after they rescue Jack and Rose wants to dance with Jack, and then the Doctor's just like, oh, look, I remember how to dance now. And I'm just like, oh, okay. Like, it's funny, but it's just like, there's like, they're playing with their dynamic, I think.
Yeah. We play with, we've talked a little bit about the idea of this being like Rose's story, of Rose kind of being like the protagonist of this, and the Doctor being like a cool supporting character. And reorienting that. And like this episode seems to me, with especially the first part being so like romantic and swoony of her like dancing with Captain Jack, it's kind of like her trying out these two guys, these people who are very similar. And she's like, oh, I can go off and have, like, there's a part in part 1 where she goes, finally a professional, because this guy has a bit more dash and daring dude than the Doctor. So it's kind of like she's picking out like what style of this new life she likes, which is kind of what being interested in different people is, in a way.
That's interesting. I definitely got more like dad at a wedding vibes.
Oh, really?
With them dancing. Yeah. I just don't get any romantic vibes off of them at all. I mean, we were talking about it. I mean, we're going to get there in a couple more seasons, but like the kiss in Parting of the Ways never felt romantic to me. And I always felt the people who made it romantic were forcing it. Like it just doesn't, I don't pick up on those vibes between them at all. And granted, I think that the vibes that people were picking up were then like evolved and changed once the Doctor became, hunky David Tennant. But like, I never got the romance vibes with the two of them. It always felt like maybe if they weren't separated by so much time, like her being so young and him being so old, maybe, but, and then that they end up massaging that with the 10th Doctor. Or, he's not any younger, but he looks younger. So, good enough, I guess. But I never got the romance vibes between them. I don't know.
I think it's a lot more subtle in season 1, which I like. more than, like, oh, we have David Tennant and he's really hot, so we can just like, pair them off together. I like that it's more subtle with Eccleston. Because it's more charming and it's more it feels more authentic. Because like Rose isn't falling for the Doctor because of like what he looks like. It's because of like what they experience together.
Sure.
Which, I'm into. So
yeah.
I think it's subtle in the way that there's chemistry between Eccleston and Billie Piper. Like they just play off each other really well. But they also are new to each other. And it's kind of like when you aren't sure, like, is this romantic or is this platonic? Like but there is a thing, and Rose being like playful with it and like, come on, let's dance. And the Doctor being like, what? No, why? Why do you want to dance? And she's like, because I want to know what it's like to dance with you. I danced with the other hot time travel guy. I want to dance with you. And she's like, and I don't know if we're just pals or not, but let's see.
Yeah. Yeah, because the energy I kept coming back to in this was like 9 just being fed up with her and her boys. Like, ugh, you and your boys. Like, you're always bringing a boy back to the ship. And like Nick was saying while we were watching it, was just like, yeah, it's not, I don't get jealous vibes from him. He's not like jealous of Jack. He's more just like annoyed that she keeps bringing back pets. Like, like that's always the vibe that I got. It was just like, God, another dog? Come on.
Because that's never a vibe that I like, is like jealous protective Doctor.
Yeah.
Right.
Of like, other guy? Who's this army guy? Bet you're in the army, huh? Army guy.
Right. Yeah. Anyway, but in terms of like the story itself, it's interesting the way that it all plays out, because I always remember it differently, or like the cold open of the first episode, we like got to the the opening credits and we were like, really, that's how this opens? Like we just didn't remember that it was like them just being like, we got to chase this thing or it's gonna hit London. Yeah, it was weird, right?
It's so nondescript that it also has the burden of being completely intrinsic to the rest of the episode. Like the whole episode is in that cold open.
Yeah. It's kind of crazy in that way. Makes you wonder how many drafts of this he wrote. But yeah. It's so like I really like this. I like it's
like a great, like, it reminds me a lot of like The Woman in Black. Where it's just a great old school ghost story and like a really effective horror film. It's actually probably one of the better, quote, scary episodes of Doctor Who that I've seen in the modern era.
Yeah, and it's also it's really great like mood setting in terms of like, you're like learning about this world of like World War II, the Blitz, and you're like living in that for a while, and he's really good with the mom character in terms of like setting her up as like extremely likable, because he knows that like the reveal of what her deal is to a lot of viewers could be seen as like, what? Which is like, what a monster,
And it's a big, which is a thing that happens a lot in horror and ghost stories, which is like making you care about a character, but in the past they did something and they're still tortured by it.
Right. And it's just really good. Like I really liked her as a character. I liked all the kids. I love that dinner scene where she's like feeding everybody. And the Doctor crashes the party,
regales them all with his charm.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. I like it a lot. So let's talk about that reveal, because I don't know. I don't love the reveal as it stands, because I do think that there's something about the way that he's like, I don't know how young you were 5 years ago, but young enough to get pregnant, I suspect. And like, it's just like real, like shamey to me. I don't know. Like, that's how I read it. It felt like he was like shaming her.
I don't know that like him puzzling through it, because like it's all down to the delivery, and I think he does a really good job of being both like, I'm supposed to like exposit the plot of like, like, oh, this is the answer to the riddle, but also I feel like there's like a 9 is very blunt, but I feel like there's like a gentleness when he figures it out. that feels not shamey, because like she is clearly so ashamed of like, you know, the circumstances that led her to, you know, having a baby at 15 and like like having to lie to him for years, and like the guilt of like him dying when she's supposed to be like taking care of him. So I think he does a really good job, to me at least, of like walking that line between like giving the audience the answer in a way that's very straightforward and we understand, but also like it doesn't read as shamey to me when he's talking about it.
Yeah, I mentioned it, I really I wish David Moffat would write like a horror film.
Yeah,
I just like with the transformations are so horrific, and like you only see it once, but the ones you don't see are actually the ones where you just hear the sound of it happening and the actors like screaming are like really creepy and effective. And yeah, like it's such a cool arc for a character to have, and like we see characters like this all the time where it's like, oh, the one guest character, but to have her get like this really cool arc at the end, and you know, it has such a memorable ending. Like even if I don't remember this episode very well, like I remember just this once everyone lives.
Right. It's the only episode in all of Doctor Who where he leaves all these people better than when he found them.
Yeah, a woman grows her leg back.
Yeah, she gets a new leg. I was like, that's more than everybody lives, buddy. Like you gave all these people perfect health, Charlie, as a result of this adventure. Yeah, it's really good, and you know, based on all of the stuff that Moffat does in the future, and the way that he, you know, can like emotionally torture characters sometimes, and like, you know, a lot of episodes have like a rough go of it. It's so fun to me and so nice to know that like he's like, well, I'm only going to get one. So if I'm going to do one Doctor Who story ever, I'm going to do one that has a happy ending. And I love that. Like that kind of, to me, that it's like, you can say all that you want about Moffat and like where he went as a showrunner and as a writer for this show, and you know, the whole full circle thing that we talk about all the time. But like the fact that it says a lot about him as a person, that like if he was only going to write one Doctor Who story, it was going to be one with a happy ending. Like that is so obscenely happy. It borders on fan fiction, you know?
Look, like, Rose, Gallifrey, it's in the sky.
Yeah. It's I don't know. There's something about that that's kind of beautiful to me. I love that.
Well, if you think about like the last like 3 Doctors before this, right? Like not counting 8, like 5, 6, 7, like all of the like Eric Sayward nonsense where like everyone dies all the time.
Right.
And then like to have this instead, I don't know. I it makes sense in my brain for like Moffat to have been like thinking about this show for like 20 years and then having a chance to write it and like, no, screw that sucked. Like I want to have the Doctor be like a hero instead of like this force that like destroys stuff, you know?
Yeah.
I don't think I never thought about it. I mean, I couldn't think about it before, but yeah, it's a really cool way to appreciate that moment of like, that was such a hard time, if it sounds like, to be a Whovian. And like, you could imagine like a younger Moffat being like, this isn't what I like about this thing that I love. And now he gets the chance to like comment on that in a way that really only people like comic book writers have a chance to like play with the mythos of the thing that they're comment on it.
Yeah. And in terms of like the narrative, you know, the non-meta narrative of this moment, that the reason that I love it so much is that, you know, we have the Ninth Doctor, who is, I mean, I feel like inarguably the most tortured Doctor.
He's recovering.
Yeah. You know, he solved a problem in the worst way possible.
Oh, that's true too.
You know, like he had to kill everyone, his people and the Daleks, just to end the Time War. And so it's like,
so much so that he's like he is currently blocking out an entire lifetime because he's like, I can't process what I had to do during that period. So like, it didn't even happen.
Right. And so he is just so tortured and so worried about doing the right thing versus the wrong thing, and what even is the right thing, and who am I to decide what the right thing is, and just this once everybody lives. And that's like, I mean, you can see he's euphoric, and you might think like that's a bit much. But
yeah, if you're like me, if this is your 5th episode of the show ever,
right, you're like, oh, that's a lot. But like Eccleston is playing it to the rafters because he knows internally what Russell T Davies has told him about this character, about what he's gone through,
right.
and so he's using this moment to reflect that, and it's a beautiful performance. I mean, I Eccleston is so underrated as the Doctor, and this is just.
Thanks to good old Nana Jeans.
Yeah, what an episode! I really love this 2-parter a lot.
Nana Jeans are a great idea. They should come into the show more.
Yeah,
they're built to repair.
I don't know why the TARDIS doesn't have nano genes. Well, I guess if it had nano genes, he would never regenerate. Why doesn't he just have nano genes?
Rose, I cracked it.
Does it not come back ever again? I feel like it does.
Does it?
I don't remember.
Google it. Because and sometimes like the wiki, the like appearances.
Yeah. Right.
Other
we'll
mentions.
Look that up.
I will say that like a plague that comes about by like people touching, and then like it's airborne and like it like turns people into empty husks. I was just like, ooh, this is different post COVID.
No, definitely. And I thought similar things. There's that really cool moment in Dr. Dances where Rose is talking to the mother character. I can't think of her name.
Nancy.
Nancy. And Nancy it was really moving. Nancy was like, she's like, wait, there's a future?
Mm-hmm.
This isn't the end of the world? And Rose is like, yeah, I'm from London 50 years from now. Life goes on. And like, that's really cool. Cause like, I think a lot of people can imagine the mindset of like, well, this is it. This is clearly the end of everything. We don't move on from this. And to have Billy Piper being like, look, I'm wearing a Union Jack shirt.
So for the record, nanogenes make appearances in here the Dr. Dances, as well as the Empty Child Dr. Dances, as well as Asylum of the Daleks and Fugitive of the Jadoon.
So, I'll have to watch those again.
Yeah. So there you go. I feel like Jack is in Fugitive of the Jadoon, right?
Yeah, yes. That's when he makes a surprise cameo.
That's when he makes it. Yeah, I think he heals one of them with nanogenes.
Oh.
I'm pretty sure.
Nice.
Like when they pop in, one of them is injured, and he's like, "Oh, I'll take care of that." Boom, there you go. Like nanogenes, and you're like, oh, "Okay."
I once let a lot of people die, but then I didn't.
And for me, that was thousands of years ago.
Yeah.
My name is Jack, and I'm immortal.
There's that moment where Jack's like dropping backstory on Rose, and he's like, yeah, like I used to work for the time agency, but then they stole 2 years from my memory, and so I'm like, I'm gonna find out what they took from me. And I was like, whoa, does that come up in Torchwood? And Scott was like, no.
Which sucks.
No, it doesn't, because they focus entirely on him being immortal post Parting of the Ways, and I guess they just found more interest in that, I guess. The concept
really
of him being
it's like
immortal.
a Weapon X kind of Jason Bourne angle.
Yeah. Yeah. Man, Torchwood. Crazy thing. There was a bit where when he catches the bomb and he's like straddling the bomb, and then like flies away. I was like, you were like making jokes like, ho, 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 like as he like flew
Sexy
away.
Christmas.
Yeah. And then I was just like, wow, they really missed a beat, like not ever doing a Torchwood Christmas special, because like that would have just been so insane that I would have loved it.
What even is that though?
I don't know. I don't know what it is, like, Cass. I just know that I want it. I'm
not being mean. I'm asking. Is Torchwood the kind of show where the characters like enjoy being around each other?
No.
Okay.
Not really. They bicker a lot.
Because you know how like The Flash, you're like, oh, that'd be fun, the idea of them all doing like Secret Santa, because they're all buddies.
Yeah. No. It's also like the cast changes completely every season.
Okay.
Pretty much.
Not unlike The Flash.
Yeah. Other than like there's a few holdovers each season.
Yeah.
Like Eve is on the whole show. He's obviously on the whole show. I think there's
the people that are in
ones.
the big epic 3-parter that we just watched with Donna Noble, those people.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, those two are on the 3 seasons, and then just the woman is on the final season. I don't think Yanto is in the final season.
Doesn't he die? That's why Jack is like super emo because he lost his boyfriend.
Maybe.
I don't remember.
Yeah,
it's been
the
a while.
Stars season.
Yeah,
the Stars season.
Yeah, Torchwood was a Stars original
Children of
series
the Earth or whatever, right?
No, that's
no, that was the 3rd season.
Yeah, which was
the BBC miniseries.
Such a bummer, dude. Torchwood is
Peter
such
Capaldi.
a bummer. Like,
yeah,
what? Why do you want a Christmas special?
I don't know.
Like the Black Mirror Christmas special.
It's so sad.
Yeah. I don't know why I want it. I just know that I do.
It's such a weird idea of like, if you sat me down or whatever, if you were like, if you just watched Dr. Dance's Parting of the whatever for the first time, my brain's falling apart. And you're like, whoa, Captain Jack's a really cool character. Oh, he gets his own show. It's called Torchwood. Oh, hell yeah, let's watch it. And then it's like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
This fun, flirty, sexy, will date anyone, loves a good time, and will have a martini right before he thinks he's gonna die.
It's got like Torchwood is very much, and we were watching this, and I was comparing it to season 1 of Buffy, like where it's just like oh, they have good scripts and they're doing the best they can, but they don't have a lot of money, and it reminded me of that a lot. And Torchwood reminds me a lot of like early Angel, where like there's little spots where you're like, oh, that was cool. That was kind of cool. And then there are other episodes where you're like, guys, you went really far in a direction that I am not into at all.
Yeah. Like the Cannibal Farm episode. Screw that episode.
Yeah.
I don't even know what show you're talking about.
It could be either one. That's the thing. It could be either show. Yeah. Yeah, it could be either show. But
this is fun.
I think I just want Jack in a Christmas special.
There you go.
I guess maybe I don't need Torchwood.
That's fair.
Honestly, they should give Jack a new show that isn't Torchwood.
Yeah.
Especially because they just brought him back.
Yeah. They could have Jack just like bumming around the universe. Like Torchwood never did that. He was always Earthbound.
Mm-hmm.
Imagine Ryan and Graham. We kind of hint that like they're still gonna be like, keeping tabs on Earth, driving around, having mysteries in a van. They run into Captain Jack.
Yeah.
3 of them get into it.
I like that.
There's been a murder on a nude beach.
Sounds like a job for me. Hey, fellas.
Oh my god.
Oh, it's that one bloke.
Oh, it's that guy.
Amazing.
Just saying we're available at any time.
Actually, Ryan doesn't even need to be there. I just want it to be Jack. Okay. Jack and Graham.
I think there's got to be some kind of buffer there to where it's not just like boning down 40 pages.
Let's get Bill instead.
There we go.
Let's get Bill in there.
Bill.
Yeah. She's somewhere in the universe.
Always in.
Yeah. It's just Bill,
Graham, and
Captain Jack, and is that her name?
What is it? Sealder? No, that's the person who found the ring.
Oh no.
What's
you
her
know
name?
what I'm talking about?
Maisie Williams?
Yes.
Maisie Williams.
Yes.
Yeah, what's her character name though? It's not a Sealder.
It's similar. It's a shielder.
A shielder? Yeah.
She just goes by me at the end, and I'm just like, that's confusing.
Right. Yeah. That's the crew.
No, the
That's
Maisie
the-
Williams
that's it.
one I want is her and Clara together, though. Like,
Faux show.
Yeah, I don't think we'd ever be able to get Clara back. I think we could get Bill
they
back.
literally run off into space together.
Yeah. I know.
Another motif that I noticed is how much Stephen Moffat, again, if this is like the one time he ever gets to write an episode, he loves the Doctor Who pun.
Yes.
Yeah, he does.
Yeah.
He absolutely does.
Can't get enough of it.
Did you ever get tired of not having a name? Doctor Who.
Tee
Moffat.
That's the name of the show, everybody.
Oh, I missed him.
She said it. I made her say it.
Oh man. Anyway, all right. It's a good one.
Mhm.
This is a good one. I really enjoy it.
What are we? What's the 10th Doctor one that we're watching?
Impossible Planet, the Satan Pit, buddy.
Nice.
Satan time, everybody.
Yeah, we're getting some cosmic horror.
Getting a big old
Doctor Who
CG
style.
guy.
So I really dislike this episode every time that I've seen it, but I haven't seen it in probably, I don't think I've had to watch it for at least 7 years, maybe longer. So
we'll see.
It'll be interesting to revisit.
Yeah.
I don't know how I'll feel about it this time. I might feel better about it. I don't know. Maybe I've grown. Maybe I haven't. Maybe my vibes are my vibes and this just isn't my vibe.
That's fair.
I don't know.
You know what we're getting though? We're getting that spacesuit.
We are getting that spacesuit. We're getting that ood.
We're getting some ood.
We're getting them dem oods.
Dem oods.
Dem oods. You guys want dem oods
Send
on
oods.
Send oods.
Hey, you know, I just
Episode
realized,
title.
do they have the little squiggly tentacle thing on their face because of like Cthulhu? Like, is that a reference to Cthulhu
Maybe?
because this is a cosmic horror episode?
Wow. That'd be cool. Maybe that'll be a TARDIS note.
So I might, I'll have to look that up when I do my research for the next one. I'll have to see if that's what it is.
I'm gonna wager. I think I'm gonna watch this episode thinking, would this be cooler if you sub out Satan
For Cthulhu.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. All right. Thanks for listening, everybody. We'll be back next week with the Impossible Planet of the Satan Pit. Check out our Patreon, duelinggenre.com/support. Very helpful. Nick and I have a new show premiering in April called Franchisography. We're starting where we talk about
the Men in Black movies.
Well, yes, but not exclusively. The show is Franchisography, and Nick and I will be talking about franchises, some of our favorite franchises as voted on by our Patreon subscribers and our Twitter followers. And we are starting with the Men in Black franchise. So that premieres in April.
And Cass is going to be our guest for Men in Black International.
Mm-hmm.
Which I haven't seen yet, so I'm kind of pumped.
Neither have I, Cass.
Oh.
We're in the same boat.
Nice.
Never saw it. Never did see it. Nick saw it. He told me not to waste my time. So
And yet.
And yet.
I willed it from my brain. Like, that's my War Doctor years. Those 2 hours that I watched Men in Black International.
Yeah. So anyway, check out Franchisography. Check out our Patreon, duelinggenre.com/support, and we'll be back next week with the 10th Doctor and the Impossible Planet, the Satan Pit. Bye, everybody.
Bye.